Falchagu ye Olde Scots, the Celtic podcast. Kimraha Huladunya, how is everyone? I have not done a podcast in the past few weeks. And that's because my lovely wife of 28 years, she passed away on March 18th of this year. Now this week's podcast, well, it's dedicated to the music and stories that she loved to listen to. She always supported and encouraged my creative side, and I will always love her for that. Enjoy. Learn the history of Gaelic songs as you learn to sing them. Gaelic and English lyrics are provided to give you a deeper understanding of the song, to guide you when you're learning, or just sit back and enjoy these beautiful songs. Alright, welcome to Learn a Gaelic Song. Today's song is Mulholland Gilas Don. It's by Clear, Scottish band, and Mulholland Gilas Don in English means My Faithful Brown-Haired Lass. Now this song is attributed to Eakin McCoynick, which I believe is Hector Mackenzie. Now in an 1874 Gaelic songbook, he's attributed to writing the song. In the song, the Baird praises the brown-haired girl who lifts his spirits, and even though he's sad because he's so far away from her, he's out on the high seas, he says that only death will ever keep him from his faithful brown-haired lass. The guy's really got it. So I hope you enjoy the song, and remember, Gaelic at the top, English at the bottom. Get ready.
Mulholland Gilas Don, Penachwalen Reyeren Cheshe Yereg Faun, She keinst of Yal bevinjelum, En Norweg Binchin Traum, Stu Hokek Suas Machri, Noer vitu brejnjere. Kernuva tachet hamis min noch gerarche choin. Miahuntach machatov Stochach Vater Buam, getricht mir aus das Mönchach, as tückisch hamit ruag, es mörötjian mit hütin, chavimahul buam. Tachgan muntach yol sound a hashich krach, the inchig damachernyak nach chilin sekuperach, na kurig shit asht gruayma, na luayma vismislan, chachum dat dicheruat, ach sayet fruaye vash. kiangal chukadayan nagus chown. Get hirich kach siat fanet room nachil mafrahe chown. Am fede kam vel forstan ha kroische genach jaun. Samische Teingel Taliche get hamos paran gaun. Thomas one kimi mochadim Jesus town. Benachwalen beyeren cheshe yedeg faun. She of your bevinjelum en nooit begintje traum. Stu hokig zoals mochrie nooit vitu
Jamie McGeekin is a friend of mine and my wife, and she absolutely adored him and his music. She listened to him all the time. I will play a couple selections of his before and after her favorite story of a strong woman just like her, Grace O'Malley.
One kiss and then we sever. A farewell will last forever. Deep in heart-wrung tears I'll pledge thee. War and sighs and groans I'll wage thee. Who shall see that fortune grieves him, while the star of hope she leaves him? Mean a cheerful twinkle lights me, dark despair around benights me. I never blame my partial fancy, nothing could resist my Nancy. But to see her was to love her, love but her and love forever. Had we never loved so kindly, had we never loved so blindly, never met or never parted, we had ne'er been broken hearted. Fare thee well, thou first and fairest, fare thee well, thou best and dearest. Thine be Elka joy and treasure, peace, enjoyment, love and pleasure. A fond kiss and then we sever. A farewell will last forever. Deep in heart-wrung tears I'll pledge thee. War and sighs and groans I'll wage thee. A fond kiss and then we sever. A farewell will last forever. Deep in heart-wrung tears I'll pledge thee. war and sighs and groan I'll wage thee. A fond kiss and then we sever, a farewell that lasts forever. Deep in heart-wrung tears I'll pledge thee, war and sighs and groan I'll wage thee.
Celtic history brings you the tales of the land, castles, warriors, heroes, legends, and customs that have created the rich, vibrant, and sometimes strange and wonderful history of the Celtic world.
This week's Celtic badass is Grace O'Malley. Now, Grace O'Malley was a tough-ass 16th century Irish warrior chick. She led a horde of broadsword-swinging Vikings, Celts, and Scottish Highlanders in naval operations that would dominate the coast of Ireland for a couple of decades. She's known to her contemporaries as the Pirate Queen of Connaught. Now, this estrogenocidal ginger gunslinger raided shipping vessels, battled English armies, conquered castles from rival Irish clans, and once traveled to London just so she could talk shit to Queen Elizabeth in person. This girl, she pretty much rocks. The future pirate queen's life began innocently enough. She was born in Ireland in 1530, a time when the crazy hornbag King Henry VIII was beheading half the female population of England, and nobody really gave a crap what the Irish were doing as long as they didn't screw with the English in Ulster too much. Now, her actual name is Grania Navale, but nowadays we anglicize it to Grace O'Malley because, well, it's easier to say. Now, Grace came from a wealthy seafaring family that lived on the western coast of Ireland. Her dad, the leader of Clan O'Malley, made most of his money sailing around trading stuff to Spain, England, France, and Portugal, and also collecting a fee from fishermen who used his waters. Now, as a girl, Grace didn't just, sit around the house boiling potatoes all day with her boring mom, so it wasn't long before she was begging her father to take her out to sea on his trading expeditions. Dad understandably wasn't all that pumped up about taking his teenage daughter out into pirate-infested waters, so he made up some BS story and told Gracie that she couldn't because of her hair was too long and it would just get stuck in the rigging on the ship or whatever. Now, Grace, as you will soon learn, wasn't the sort of chick who flinched when it came to make a decision between wussing out and doing badass stuff. However, the next day, Dad went out to the docks and saw that his daughter had cut off all her hair with a knife and was ready to rock out on the high seas. He couldn't exactly say no, so away they went. Now, Grace quickly proved herself not only as an able seawoman, capable of pulling her own weight aboard a merchant vessel, but her ability to work the ship, lead the men, and spot storms on the horizon before anyone else quickly led her to being promoted to serve as her father's second in command, even above some of her older brothers. Now, on some of their trading expeditions, known to the crew as Grace the Bald because of her short hair, one story claims that when her ship was overtaken and boarded by pirates, she personally saved the lives of one of her crew members by leaping off the rigging in the middle of a melee and dive bombing a pirate death style from above. Now, once her sea legs were firmly established, and she made quite a life for herself, kicking ass around the high seas for fun and profit, and of course, badassery. The 16-year-old Grace was married off in 1546 to a guy named Donald of the Battle. Donald was a tough, easily irritable Irish hothead who lived in a place awesomely called the Cock's Castle, and spent the most of his time being a jerk to people from neighboring clans. Now, Donald was eventually killed in battle after he pissed off Clan Joyce for some reason. They charged Cock Castle and captured it. Grace immediately raised an army, personally stormed the walls at the head of an army, and retook her dead husband's castle by force. The Joyces renamed it the Hen's Castle, the name by which it still is known today. Later, she married a guy named Iron Richard Burke, who had a real affinity for chainmail foundries, and accomplishing nothing of any real importance, Iron Dick was just fine. It wouldn't have been fun if Iron Dick and her went and lived in Cox Castle. That would have just been, I don't know, weird, I guess. But anyway, she basically married him for political reasons, and after a year of betrothal, she locked him out of his own castle and threw all his stuff on the lawn. When Dick came home and was like, "What the hell?" she leaned out the window and yelled, "Richard, I dismiss you." So he left without an argument, and she spent the rest of her life cougaring up with guys she found shipwrecked on shore. I don't know, Blue Lagoon style, I guess. But marriage isn't what defined the Pirate Queen now. Upon the deaths of her father and husband, Grace O'Malley inherited big swaths of coastal land and castles. Using her own ingenuity, ruthlessness, and badassery, she turned that territory into a criminal empire of pirate girl awesomeness that would make the shipping and fishing industries its bitch for the remainder of O'Malley's long, ultra-grizzled life. Now, the pirate kingdom of Grace O'Malley started off innocuously enough, I suppose. Grace's father had implemented a tax on fishing and merchant ships that moved through his waters, a nominal fee akin to how many nobles put tolls on roads through their land. Well, Grace took this operation over and immediately cranked that organized racketeering shit up to 12. Now, building a small navy of scurvy Irishmen and sending out her fleet to collect taxes and tolls from an ever-increasingly area of western coast. If people refused to pay the toll, or Grace's henchmen would board the ship pirate style, kick the crap out of everybody on board, take whatever the hell they wanted, and bring the loot back to Sea Queen. Now, eventually Grace stopped even calling it a tax, and the toll collecting business became full-scale piracy. Grace began to augment her already awesome pirate force by recruiting warriors known as Gallowglasses, an elite, tough-as-nails group of claymore-swinging, face-crushing Scots who obliterated everyone in their path in an explosion of blood spray and flying, dismembering appendages. Gallowglasses, in a nutshell, are the result of what happened when the Vikings landed in Scotland, set up villages, and intermarried with the Scottish Highlanders. So they're like Viking Highlanders, kind of. I can think of little that is more terrifying, with these guys at the vanguard of her forces. Now, Grace not only hit shipping and fishing traffic, but soon started pummeling coastal fortresses, capturing large swaths of territory from any clans unfortunate enough to be positioned in her zone of authority. She also built up merchant trade with England, Ulster, Spain, France, and Portugal, accumulating huge quantities of cash from these wealthy countries. But that's marginally less interesting than the Scotch-Irish Vikings storming fortresses with cannons and battle axes. While ruling an empire of Viking Highlander pirates is sweet and all, O'Malley was a tough lady herself as well, more than happy to wade into combat herself, and this was definitely not the sort of chick you wanted to cross swords with on a smoke-swept deck of a burning merchantman. One story claims that she gave birth to her third child on the high seas during a trade expedition to the Mediterranean. As she was popping the kid out, word came that the vessel was under attack by Turkish pirates. So she finished giving birth, grabbed her gun, then immediately ran out to bust caps and pirates and command the defense of her ship. Another time, one of her boyfriends was captured and executed by a rival clan. So she waited until the leaders of the clan landed on an island for vacation, attacked the island, burned their ships, and killed everyone she could find. After wiping out the leadership of the clan, she then led her soldiers to assault the clan's fortress, capturing it and reappropriating it for her own use. On yet another occasion, a local English earl refused to let Grace in when she stopped by for a dinner. So she kidnapped the earl's son and held him for ransom, only returning him when the earl decided he'd cook her some bacon and leave an extra place setting out for the rest of his life. just in case she ever decided to show up again. Now, interesting fact, to this day, at that Earl's table, tradition is they always send an extra plate, and that remains to this day. Now, as a pretty bitchin' side note, when the Spanish Armada came to attack England in 1588, one of the warships of the Armada got lost in the storm and ended up getting stuck in waters controlled by the Sea Queen of Connaught. Grace O'Malley personally led the attack that captured the war galleon. She was 50 years old at the time. Eventually, the English decided they'd heard enough stories of their people getting their asses kicked by the Sea Queen, so they sent an expedition to attack Hens Castle and put O'Malley in her place once and for all. Now, Grace held off the attack by pouring hot oil from the roof of the castle onto the attackers, and then by melting down captured armor and plundering and molding it into bullets to fight the English. Having been thoroughly wrecked medieval style, the English force retreated back to their ships and hauled ass back to London. They didn't make it, of course. The moment the attack was called off, Grace lit a signal fire on the roof of her castle, and as the English pulled away, they came face to face with, the Sea Queen's fleet of pirate ships. The English would have their revenge, however. In 1593, the man who had sent the attacking force, the English governor of Connaught, led a raid that captured Grace's brother and sons. He held them for ransom in his prison. Demanding that Grace surrender herself, Grace responded by traveling to London and requesting an audience with another tough-ass British woman, a ruler who had an affinity for high-sea pirating, Queen Elizabeth of England herself. Despite being a badass pirate queen, talking to an actual queen, Grace refused to bow, stood tall, and demanded the release of her family. Elizabeth, who was a reasonable enough woman when it came to shit like this, agreed to fire the jackass governor, recall him to England, and release O'Malley, the prisoners, back to O'Malley. As long as she'd stop, destabilizing the countryside and supporting rebellions of petty Irish nobles. That was cool at Grace, and the deal was done. That's one way to get rid of your enemies. So, Grace O'Malley, the badass sea queen and leader of Connaught, dominated the shipping lanes and accumulated tons of wealth during her lifetime. She was never conquered, never defeated, and died an old woman living in a giant freaking castle on top of piles of gold coins and 25-year-old studs with rock-hard abs. Now, her son went on to be Viscount of Mayo, and nowadays she is memorialized in plenty of Irish folk songs as the badass woman she was. She's also notable because Joyce wrote about her in Finnegan's Wake, even though she was a badass.
There is a call that I can hear, and there is a road that leads out of here. There is no way that I can choose. If you leave here, I'd only lose. There was a time that I do no wrong, that I'd have no grace, and I'd have no space. But now you see that I'm just in mind and flesh and bones, is all that I am. And hold on to the seams of truth. If you could say what's in your heart, the message you bring, the light in your dark. If you could see to me, looking for you, looking for you. There was a time, and there was a space that I do know wrong, and not have your grace. But now you see all that I am is flesh and bones. Yes, I'm just a man, I'm just a man. There is a call that I can hear. There is a road that leads out of here. There is no way that I can choose. If you leave me here, I don't really lose.
When I was competing in the Highland Games, we lived in Texas. And like me, my wife enjoyed going to the festivals, listening to the music, having a great time. Her favorite band was the Celtic Girls. Their music would draw her away from me while I was competing every time to the music tents. I'm going to play a couple of their selections around another of her favorite stories, and that is the Scottish witch trials. She loved everything about witches and ghosts and vampires. Weird for a Christian girl, huh?
Up behind me, red-haired Mary, he did cry. Will you come with me, my red-haired Mary, the donkey can carry two. Looked at him, me eyes didn't twinkle, me cheeks they were a rosy hue. Thank you kindly, sir, I answered, then I tossed me light red hair. Says I, will you hold the donkey and I'll ride with you to the Dingle Fair. When we reached the town of Dingle, he caught me hand to say goodbye. When a tinker man stepped up beside me, I hit him right in his left eye. Take your hands off red-haired Mary, she and I are to be wed. We were with the priest this very morn, tonight we light our marriage bed. more. Kicked the tinker with his hobnails, knocked him through Tom Murphy's door. He galloped off to meet his father, the tallest man you e'er did see. Tapped him gently with his knuckles, and now he's missing two front teeth. Oh, and I, the happy calling man, with you I'll go, I said. Never mind the priest this very morn. Tonight we'll sleep in Murphy's shed. Take your hands off red-haired Mary, she and I are to be wed. We were with priest this very morn. Tonight we lie in our marriage bed. Round the corner came a peeler, told him I had broke the law. The donkey kicked him on the kneecap, he fell down and broke his jaw. Through the fair we roamed together, his black eye and my red hair, gazing gaily at the tinker. Weren't we the happy pair? Take your hands off red-haired Mary, she and I are to be wed. We were with priest this very morn. Tonight we lie in our marriage bed. Woo! Take your hands off red-haired Mary, she and I are to be wed. We were with priest this very morn. Tonight we lie in our marriage bed. Off. Take your hands 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 off. Whoa, take your hands off red-haired Mary, she and I are to be wed. We were with the priest this very morn. Tonight we lie in our marriage bed. Whoa, take your hands off red-haired Mary, she and I are to be wed. Red-haired Mary, she and I are to be wed. We were with the priest this very morn. Tonight we lie in our marriage bed. Take your hands off.
Everyday Celtic Ways brings you the mythology, traditions, and customs that have created a unique and personal culture that still affects those that are Celtic and those that just love the Celtic world.
Between 1563 and 1763, Scotland was a country in turmoil, from religious power struggles to outright paranoia. This is what fueled the Scottish witch trials. Now, belief in witchcraft was common during the Middle Ages, but leaders of the Catholic Church were largely skeptical, seeing it as folklore rather than something sinister. Lawyers were only interested in cases where harm was alleged to have taken place, and some high-profile political cases have been recorded, including the case of John Stuart, Earl of Mar, for allegedly using sorcery against his brother King James III in 1479. Now, cases like this were rare. However, as Scotland was plunged into turbulence of the early modern era, attitudes began to change. New laws were formed, and Scotland found itself in the grip of several witch trials and even witch hunts. The passing of the Witchcraft Act of 1563 made witchcraft, or even consulting with witches, a capital offense. As a result, it is estimated that 4,000 to 6,000 people were tried for witchcraft, and that more than 1,500 people were executed. Approximately 75% of those who were accused were women. In 1560, the Scottish Parliament made Scotland officially a Protestant country. However, what this legislation did not do was set down what powers the church might be granted with in respect to those who disobeyed the tenets of this newfound faith. Indeed, the new church had barely come to terms with its own new powers and the implications for governing its congregation when the fervor about witches began to ramp up. So when the Witchcraft Act was passed, the Scottish Parliament, it had immediately deadly consequences. It was a time of great change in Scotland, a time when your religious affiliation could make or break a monarch or send you to your death for no reason at all. Lutheran ideas had reached Scotland in 1525, plunging the nation into the Reformation. Under the watchful eye of John Knox, Scotland eventually became a Protestant country. Knox initially was a follower of Luther, but later adopted the ideology of John Calvin. Now, both Luther and Calvin held the belief that witchcraft was a crime of such serious nature that it merited the death penalty. John Knox played a significant role in drafting the Scottish Witchcraft Act and was influenced by the beliefs of his role models. Now, the question that they were facing was what constituted ungodliness. It would soon become apparent that the new regime viewed the world solely in black and white, zero tolerance for anything unholy. Significantly, the Witchcraft Act did not define what formed an act of witchcraft, nor did it mention the demonic pact initially. Those enforcing the Witchcraft Act were more concerned with putting an end to superstition and a belief in magic. Magic was the ritualistic use of an object or words in the form of a spell to achieve a desired outcome. Now, this could be in the form of healing, fortune-telling, love potions, finding lost or stolen goods, and protective and good luck charms. It was believed that illness was caused by malign spirits, which could be removed by transferring it to another person or object. Of course, if someone could perform good magic, then the converse had to be also true. Magic could be used to cause harm. Now, their ignorance of the world and their fear of God's wrath and love of a newfound power led them to commit atrocities on a grand scale in the name of God.
Push around, I'll go down crown. Push me, hey, knock, rock, hey, now.